Welcome to 5 Exemplary Leadership Practices, a webinar for VISTA leaders. While there are many leadership roles, there's one that seems well suited to the role of VISTA leaders. This session will look at the Leadership Challenge model and highlight 5 practices that exemplary leaders share. I'm your host, Bethany DeSablin, a program advisor and instructional designer at Education Northwest, one of AmeriCorps' partners. Our presenter is Kapila Wewegama, who is a trainer for the VISTA Leader program, as well as a leadership coach and management consultant in the San Francisco Bay Area. Kapila has a long connection with the VISTA program and with VISTA leaders in particular, having developed and delivered in-person training and webinars for VISTA leaders for many years. Additionally, Kapila has also facilitated training for VISTA supervisors and VISTA members for more than 17 years. Kapila, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Bethany. Hello, VISTA leaders. Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us this opportunity to discuss with you about leadership practices you can use with your VISTA members. So let's look at what our targeted outcomes for this webinar today. We have 3 session outcomes. Our first outcome is to learn about the 5 exemplary leadership practices of Leadership Challenge model. Next outcome is to identify specific techniques that we as VISTA leaders can apply to lead members using these 5 exemplary leadership practices. The final outcome is to recognize some common behaviors that can sabotage our ability to apply these 5 practices. Let's now look at the session process, so you will know how our conversations are going to proceed. First, we will take a few minutes to reflect on our own current leadership practices. When we are exploring new ways of leading, it's always helpful to begin with some self-awareness of our current leading practices. Then we will introduce the 5 exemplary leadership practices of the Leadership Challenge model and look at example activities that you as VISTA leaders can use to engage in those practices. Thirdly, we will give you an opportunity to work in breakout groups to compile a list of activities and techniques the VISTA leaders currently use in relation to these 5 exemplary leadership practices. Following the small group work, you will have the opportunity to hear what each group has identified. Finally, we will look at some common unhealthy practices that can sabotage our ability to apply these 5 exemplary leadership practices. As you remember, Andy sent you a worksheet to write down your own notes during this webinar, and we kindly invite you to use it during our conversations. By doing so, you will have your own handout with your own words that will help you to implement ideas and techniques that you will learn during this webinar. So let's take 3 minutes to do a self-reflection and identify your favorite activities you do whenever you are in a leadership position. We invite you to write them on a piece of paper or on your computer. Here are 2 examples. I always take time to talk with my team about our purpose for being a team. Another example, I enjoy doing team building activities with my team. Now, when you write your favorite 5 activities or practices, please make sure that those are activities that you habitually or actually do and not what you think you should do. Thank you, leaders, taking a few moments to do some self-reflections. So now we invite you to share one of your 5 activities via chat. So please make sure that you have chosen everyone so everybody can see some of your insights, your reflections.
And great. It looks like we have one from Damika. I like to do icebreakers before meetings. Patrick likes to share successes. Anna does highs and lows during one-on-one check-in meetings and staff meetings. Asking people I'm leading about why they're serving, checking in with how we're feeling before a meeting, attending public activities they host during their service. What's working and why? It sounds like a question you ask often. I have a present on their project. I like to do check-ins regularly, Rosebud and Thorn. Tim says review purpose, set ground rules, identify communication methods, identify roles, and ID how progress will be tracked. Weekly activities of the whole organization, switching off between team building and self-reflection based, sharing successes on accomplishing goals. When meeting with my team members, I usually like to tell a really bad dad joke to help break the ice. For example, what does the dramatic barista say to their friend? Oh, we're going to want to find out the answer to that, Dylan. Hi, everyone. I enjoy having people share what their 5 things that they're excited about during our weekly meetings. Always engaging in dialogue with members to further explore ideas. Try to enumerate as many details as possible about assignments and projects. Cahoots during meetings. And the answer to the riddle is sometimes I'm a latte. I'm a late. I'm a latte. Playing games first. Okay, these are great.
Wow.
These are great.
Wow. These are great. Thanks, Bethany, for kindly sharing those with all of us. And I have to tell you, as I was listening to you and looking at the chat, I mean, there's no question. We are talking to a great group of leaders right yes. here. And I hope the rest of the colleagues who attended this session, you may want to take note of these great ideas that has already popped up, and we encourage you to do it as as we go through this process. All right, so after we look at the 5 exemplary leadership practices, which we'll be doing soon, it will be interesting for you to see how these activities actually fit in with those 5 exemplary practices, what you have just written for yourself. Okay, so let's examine those 5 practices. So this, the Leadership Challenge is a framework that was created by James Cousers and Barry Posner. They both were professors at Santa Clara University and began creating this model in 1981. So their approach was not to survey star leaders, but to survey thousands of ordinary individuals to find out about their peak leadership experiences and figure out what their leaders did for them to have such extraordinary experiences as team members and employees. Their extensive research simply focused on the question, what do leaders do while operating at their personal best? So therefore, their strategy was to use an impact-based research approach. Based on thousands of surveys and case studies, James and Barry were able to identify 5 common practices leaders had carried out to operate from their personal best or peak leadership experiences. All right, now we will examine what those 5 exemplary leadership practices are and how we could adopt them as VISTA leaders. So first, let's get a helicopter view of those 5 practices, and then we will examine each one in detail. First practice, model the way. Second practice, inspire a shared vision. Third practice, challenge the process. Fourth practice, enable others to act. And the 5th practice, encourage the heart. So there are 2 important attributes about this framework. One factor is that this is not a hierarchical model. That means no one practice is superior to the other. They all are equally important. Second fact is that these 5 exemplary leadership practices do not operate in isolation. They are interdependent and interrelated. In this first exemplary leadership practice, modeling the way, the leader sets an example by behaving in ways that are consistent with the leader's shared values and vision. The leader creates standards of excellence and sets a powerful example for the members to live up to. The leader purposefully creates opportunities for members to accomplish and become successful in their efforts. The leader also provides guidance and direction when members feel unsure of where to go or how to get there. Let's look at 2 examples on how a VISTA leader, that's ourselves, might demonstrate this practice of modeling the way. One way to demonstrate this practice is to identify leadership principles and values, share them with the members, and consistently live by them. Another example is to establish standards for the team with the team's engagement and to set an example for the members to follow by fully adhering to them daily. And before I continue with the second one, I just want to make a quick note as we were waiting for the session to start. I saw in the chat, some of you are sharing about your leadership thoughts, and some of these practices were actually showing up. So that is very, very encouraging. All right. The second practice is about inspiring a shared vision. This is about the leader envisioning an exciting and believable future for the group, project, or the organization. The leader is passionate in making a difference and works tirelessly to influence and enlist members and others in a common vision by appealing to their core values, hopes, and dreams. The leader keeps both the vision and mission alive and worthwhile. A VISTA leader example could be a VISTA leader facilitating a visioning activity with the members to create a vision for the team or the project. A second example could be where a VISTA leader identifies members' individual, personal, and professional goals and help the members to align those with their projects and team's vision. The leader understands that challenging the process is not about challenging people. Very important. It is about challenging the status quo for project improvement, enhancement, and increased project impact. Therefore, the leader searches for opportunities to purposefully infuse growth, innovation, and creativity to project processes and systems. The leader is willing to take meaningful and calculated risks and open to accept mistakes and failures encountered and use them as further growth opportunities. Here's one way to challenge the process. The leader can encourage the members to recognize their project challenges as opportunities to improve their projects and then work with the members to find growth opportunities in those challenges. As challenging the process involves taking risks and at times making inevitable mistakes, the leader can be very candid when such mistakes are made and show the members how the leader used those lessons learned as personal growth and project improvement opportunities. So once again, a quick note, as we are looking at these 5 practices, think about the 5 examples you wrote at the beginning and see how they are connecting to what we are talking about. The leader brings life to this exemplary leading practice of enabling others to act by creating a team culture of trust and human dignity. The leader operates from the belief that the members will fully engage in the project process and with each other only if there is mutual respect and trustworthiness. The leader strives to effectively accommodate different personality types and work styles, ensuring that each member can bring out their personal best. This is also about strengthening others by developing their competence. In this leadership practice, the leader instills the value of interdependence as a means for collective success. One technique a VISTA leader can use is to intentionally identify opportunities for members to collaborate meaningfully during team meetings. When the leader is intentional in this effort, the members realize that collaboration is an expected team norm and a practice. Another strategy is for the leader to apply a strengths-based leadership approach. Here, the leader will identify each member's strengths and utilize them effectively for the team's and project's success. The leader is keenly aware that the exemplary practice of encouraging the heart is vital to maintaining members' inner motivation. Now, it doesn't matter whether the acknowledgement is big or small. Our human nature is that we thrive on recognition and appreciation. The leader works very diligently to recognize individual contributions to the success of each project and to celebrate them. As some members' hard and impactful work might go unnoticed by the organization at times, the leader's consistent efforts to recognize, highlight, and celebrate member accomplishments will in turn keep our members' hopes and determination alive and effectively create a culture of celebration and recognition. One way to encourage the heart is for the leader, that's ourselves, to consistently recognize the individual members' contributions at team meetings and through other relevant communications. Another simple yet a powerful way to encourage the heart is to send thank you notes to members when they have accomplished something important. And we would encourage, whenever possible, handwritten thank you notes can add more sentimental value, as you know, to the intended acknowledgement and appreciation. And before we go to the poll, again, let's take like 30 seconds before we go to the next slide. And I would like you to now, looking at those 5 practices we just examined, looking at the attributes and examples, do a quick reflection on the 5 examples that you wrote that you like to do whenever you are in a leadership seat, and how they connect to these 5 practices. Are they connecting to only 1 or 2? Are they connecting to most of them? If they are only connecting to 1 or 2, here's a gentle reminder. That might tell you that you might be habitually focusing on 1 or 2 of these practices in your autopilot mode, but the other practices may be something that you need to put a little more time and effort. So let's take 30 seconds, quick checking. You don't have to share. This is individual checking. Thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to Bethany for the next piece.
Thank you. Okay, we want to pause and give you a chance to see how well you're following along. So you should see the questions in a pop-up of your screen, a poll. If you're on a mobile device, the poll feature isn't available. Please take a moment to read each set of practices from each set. Select the one that is an example of an exemplary leadership practice. When you've completed both sets, click the submit button, and we'll just give you a few minutes here or give you a few seconds to read those and respond. Okay, we have about a little over half of you have submitted your answers. Give it a few more seconds here. Okay, thank you all. It looks like most everyone has gotten to it. Thank you for participating. All right, we're going to move on.
Thank you, Bethany, and thank you, leaders, taking a moment to do that quick reflection. Okay, so we just examined the 5 exemplary leadership practices in details and ways a VISTA leader can engage in those practices. Now, it's time to dig out the real gems. These are the different activities and techniques you as VISTA leaders currently apply and have found to be effective related to these 5 exemplary leadership practices. Here's how we are going to compile a list of such effective practices from the field related to those 5 exemplary leadership practices. So we are going to do this in small breakout groups and then share our work with the large group. Let's go through the instructions carefully so there is no confusion when you get into the process. First, you will be randomly assigned to a group or a breakout room to focus on one of the 5 exemplary practices. You will have up to 12 minutes altogether in your group.
Okay, so here are the breakout activities instructions. So first, be sure to note your group number in case you get bumped out and we need to get you back into your group. Once you're in your small group, identify a group facilitator, a note taker, and a reporter. So 3 roles to determine. Captioning will be available in group 1 only. So if you need captioning and are assigned to a group other than 1, please stay in the main room and send a chat to all panelists, letting us know you'd like to be in group 1. When you come back to the large group, I'll invite one group at a time to report out. The note taker will post the notes in the chat for everyone, and the reporter should be ready to unmute their microphone and report verbally the top 3 ideas from the group list. So make sure that that person that you assign as the reporter is understanding that they're going to be speaking into the larger group. And then in your small group, you'll identify effective activities and techniques VISTA leaders currently use to implement and assign exemplary leadership practices. So in the group, you'll see in the chat, those are the group. Group 1 is model the way. Group 2 is inspire a shared vision. Group 3 is challenge the process. Group 4 is enable others to act. And group 5 is encourage the heart. So go ahead and when you get into your groups, identify facilitator, note taker, and reporter, and discuss ways leaders implement these leadership practices. All right, for those of you just re-entering, thank you for participating in the breakout. I hope you had some valuable ideas and some good discussions. So thank you for coming back, and I hope we have everyone. Let's look at the numbers here. It looks like people are still coming back, so we'll give a little bit more time here. But welcome everyone, welcome back. Okay, I think we're back. Let's continue.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. All right, now we're excited to hear about the list each group created in relation to their exemplary leadership practice. I know some groups are smaller than others, so thank you all for maybe potentially taking on more than one role. I'm going to invite one group at a time to speak. When your group is invited, the note taker for that group, please post your group's full list in the chat and choose everyone so that all of us can see it. And then the reporter for that group will unmute themselves and report out just the top 3 from the list of activities. We know you probably had more, but just pick your top 3 and share those out. And then a gentle reminder to capture those in your worksheet. You've got some space to capture the ideas that sound good to you that you may be able to use later. So let's start with group 1. This group is Model the Way.
Yeah, so our top 3 were lead by example, meaning words and behavior should match. Our second one was the platinum rule, which is to treat others how they want to be treated. And our third one was to maintain flexibility and recognize that everyone's coming from a different place.
Awesome. Thank you, group 1. Super. Okay, now we're going to move on to group 2, Inspire a Shared Vision. And remember to post the list in the chat and choose everyone. All right, we're ready.
Okay.
Do we have a reporter? Great.
Yep. So I guess for ours, I guess we mostly mentioned a couple different activities that we would do that might help to provide some opportunity for inspiration. Like we mentioned, some of us actually have like pretty big like orientations for pretty large groups, and they were able to use those. We also have had, or some of us have also had like social lunches, which some which had a lot of people, some not so many people, and that was also something that we thought was help, or that definitely could help in some situations, and also just trying to foster collaboration between them, but by like mentioning different opportunities, like during meetings that might be able to help where one person could help another, which kind of builds more of a shared vision for what we can all do to help each other. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Was your group's Inspire a Shared Vision?
Right.
Just to
Right,
double check. Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move to group 3, which is Challenge the Process.
Hi, so yes, we're Challenge the Process, and we just discussed how certain organizations may be really ingrained and set in their ways, and they may not be willing to change certain processes because it might be scary or disruptive, or maybe staff members will have to relearn new processes, which might be challenging. But we do try to encourage our VISTA members who are new to the organization and maybe able to bring fresh ideas to voice their opinions, and to perhaps even like write a proposal of like the pros of their ideas, and share that in like a presentation with staff members at their organization. And we think it's beneficial because sometimes if an old process is not working and continues to lead to negative results, or not so not the best results, then it might be good to have a new process in place. And it's important for staff members and people in general to practice being nimble and flexible. So yeah, we encourage VISTA members to advocate for their ideas at their organizations.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, then the next group is group 4, Enabling Others to Act. do we have a reporter for that group 4?
Yes.
All right, great.
So what we talked about initially collecting their commitment. So really trying to curate a space where they can speak upon their commitment to the VISTA project, and also turning that into a mutual conversation of recognizing and thanking them for their commitment and service. Then we talked about more concrete ideas, so centering the bad and using that as an opportunity to also leverage some of our members' strengths. So for example, if there's like a public speaking event or something of that sort, and there's a VISTA member that has a lot of experience in that, like giving them the opportunity to do that as like an initial activity on their BAD. And then lastly, or second to last, we talked about taking ownership over their BAD and really giving them the resources also to implement and carry out the activities delineated on the BAD. And lastly, we talked about building relationships, right? How in order to propel our VISTA members to act, that it's important for them to feel like they are in a trustworthy space with us as VISTA leaders, and then their cohort as well, if there are other VISTA members on the project.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then finally, group 5, encourage the heart.
So yeah, group 5 had encourage the heart, and our 3 top activities that we came up with were connecting with the community. One of the examples we had was using National Days of Service as an example to really get out in the community. Sharing the mission of VISTA and individual organizations and focusing on that and kind of what drives them to show up every day and do all the hard work they do. And then the other one was team meetings to really share the challenges so that they could feel heard, and then share successes so that we can celebrate them.
Excellent. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. These ideas are great, and we appreciate the time that you took into them and then your willingness to share them out. And we'll gather these all together so that, because I think we've got a lot in the chat, we'll gather these together and capture them to share out. So back to you, Kapila.
Thank you, Bethany. And yes, wow. I'm so grateful and very impressed. Just seeing these very concrete and applicable, relevant ideas. And as Bethany had mentioned right at the beginning of the activity, we hope that you captured some of those for your own use. So before we move on to the next one, I want to thank each one of you for participating, and for our note takers for doing a great job. And then Sally, Calvin, Stephanie, Anna, and Caitlin, thank you for reporting out for everybody's benefit. So with that, let's move on. So now let's take some time to identify what are some common behaviors on our part as leaders that can sabotage our ability to fully practice these 5 exemplary leading practices. So as leaders, it's very important for us to examine our current attitudes, behaviors, and practices to reflect on how we show up to other people, and check whether we have any attitudes, behaviors, and practices that could be sabotaging these 5 exemplary leadership practices. So some of these sabotaging behaviors can be unintentional. Looking at these behaviors not only help us to catch ourselves if we happen to have them, but it also helps us to be intentional about correcting them. So let's quickly look at 2 common sabotaging behaviors for each exemplary leadership practice. So before we take a look at this, another quick reminder is listen, look at the slide carefully and ask yourself, do a self-assessment. Ask yourself, do I happen to do these things in my autopilot mode. Okay, so it's a good way to catch ourselves so we can again be intentional about overcoming, correcting them. So what are two common behaviors that can disengage us from the practice of modeling the way? One common sabotaging behavior is when the leader is not consistent in keeping up with the standards, expectations, and norms set for the team. As a leader, we cannot compromise our mutually agreed standards, expectations, and norms, even for our own convenience. When the members notice such inconsistency, they not only lose faith in the leader, but also on the standards, expectations, and norms. If we happen to be inconsistent accidentally, we need to admit, explain, and apologize right away. Lack of concrete leading values and principles is another reason that will negatively impact this leading practice. Every leader, we all should have a written list of leading values and principles that we use as a compass in daily leadership thinking and actions. This helps us as leaders to be always objective and rational in leading our teams. Let's look at what not to do in relation to the practice of inspiring a shared vision. As we all know, others can detect the energy, enthusiasm, and commitment we bring to a mission by just observing our speech, actions, and attitudes. So the leader not having own faith in the vision will be detected by the members, and it will take a toll on the leader's ability to inspire a shared vision. When we are passionate about our vision, it becomes contagious. Have you ever worked with a leader who has a negative attitude towards work? You know how it de-energizes and demotivates us. A positive outlook is not a choice for a leader, but it's definitely a must. Challenging the process calls for the right attitude so not to offend people. One common mistake a leader can make is how you show up when there is a challenge or problem that has a potential opportunity for project enhancement. If we happen to complain, blame, and point fingers at others when faced with a challenge or a problem in our project, we might unintentionally challenge the people instead of challenging the process. This can take away our ability to challenge the process and facilitate necessary changes to improve the project. So we need to ask ourselves, are my attitudes and actions making me part of the problem or part of the solution? Another distractor to the practice of challenging the process is to operate with no hope. A leader's habitual statements, such as, I don't think this will change the way they do business, or I think our efforts will be pointless as these individuals don't change, or why worry and waste our time? Let's just do what we are asked to do. So these kind of statements will indeed put a dent on any hope that members have in challenging the process to enhance their project processes and outcomes. As we all know, the winning teams thrive by the cultural value that inspires every member to bring out their individual best for the collective achievement. So what are two common mistakes a leader can make to sabotage the efforts of enabling others to act exemplary leadership practice? A common disruptive habit is when a leader favors some members over the others. This can be demonstrated by simple actions, such as giving unearned compliments to the favorite and not extending compliments to the others when they have earned such recognitions, or giving exciting opportunities only to those favored. When this happens, the members who feel that they are in the outer group will lose enthusiasm and gradually become passive members of the team. A second mistake is to just focus on members' weaknesses and not to capitalize on their strengths. As we know, many studies have shown that when leaders focus on members' strengths, they increase members' active engagement over 90%. That's huge. While it is important to support our members to address their limitations, it is vital that leader identifies and creates meaningful opportunities for members to play to their strengths. We all recognize that being a VISTA leader is about engaging in people business. And therefore, the exemplary leading practice of encouraging the heart is focal to our success. Let's see 2 ways a leader, or even we might unintentionally drop the ball regarding this practice. If a leader falls into the mindset of seeing their members as just as wags and getting the work done is the only purpose of their presence, the members will eventually lose passion for and commitment to their work. Effective leaders always see the human element first when relating to and leading their members. When our members feel that they are treated with dignity, respect, and trust, they will go out of their way to bring out their best to everyone. Brain science has informed us that humans crave recognition, and giving and receiving gratitude is a key ingredient for happiness. So therefore, a leader who has not cultivated the habit of appreciation can unintentionally work against this exemplary leading practice of encouraging the heart. All right, now let's take a moment to recap what we have covered during this webinar. First, you took a few minutes to identify the type of activities you tend to enjoy and carry out with teams whenever you are in the leadership seat. Next, we looked at the leadership challenge model and its 5 exemplary leadership practices. Third, you worked in breakout groups to identify effective practices from the field relating to these 5 exemplary leadership practices and shared with each other. Finally, we looked at several behaviors that can sabotage a leader's ability to live these 5 exemplary leadership practices. So before we wrap up, I want to point out 2 resources for future reference. First is the Leadership Challenge book. The model and the 5 practices that we discussed are from this source. Second is the official website for this module. The authors also have developed a leadership practices inventory that will measure how frequently we apply these 5 practices of exemplary leadership in our work as leaders. The link to the website is posted or will be posted in the chat. Let me take a quick look. And next, Bethany is going to talk about the session survey and open the discussion for question and answers. Before that, if I pass this on to Bethany, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for joining us for this webinar and sharing your very insightful thoughts and ideas. As I said from the beginning, even before we got started, while we were waiting, some of you really gave a fabulous start to this conversation. So thank you. And wishing you all the best with your leader year, and thank you for what you do every day to support your members. And with that, Bethany, to you.
Thank you, Kapila, and thank you. I echo that. We'd love to hear your feedback about today's webinar. So you'll see there's a link to the survey in the chat. And as Kapila mentioned, we'd love to hear your information. I'm sorry, your feedback on this. It's really important to us, and it's important to Kapila. And the survey may be opened in your browser behind your Zoom, but if not, the link is in the chat. And, you know, unfortunately, we're a little bit over time, so we're just going to remind you that there is a next webinar next month coming up for leaders, and it's on using direct communication when there's a need to discuss difficult topics. It will take place on September 16th, so watch your inbox for an invitation, and we hope to see you there. And then here's a quick view of the VISTA campus calendar and how you visit learn.americorps.gov and log in and click on calendar from the main menu. Click on any date with a blue dot next to it, for example, September 16th, which is the next webinar. The name of the event will appear in the dark blue banner at the bottom. Click on the event and see the webinar details to register. So this is a bit of a new process, so we are giving you a little bit of additional information on how to do that. So again, I want to thank our presenter, Kapila Wewegama, for such an informative presentation. I want to thank all of you for your participation. This was the small group work and talking to each other and reporting out. We really appreciate it. It makes this webinar so much better. And thanks to Andy King for instructional design and his support of this project throughout. And Mike Dietz and Jeff Banis, who are the producers of this webinar. Thank you for them, and thank you for joining. This concludes today's presentation, and you may now disconnect.